We're on air.
Excellent. As soon as Adobe chooses to work. All right.
While we're pausing for a minute, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, Ann and Mr. Mayor, I made you guys co-hosts in the event. I normally do that, but my laptop seems to be running updates right now. So if I drop, the Zoom meeting should continue and you or Ann would become the host, and I'll get back on when I can, should that happen.
Okay, cool. Thanks for letting us know. All right, so our first item for the work session is to get back to the council goal setting discussion. Trying to decide whether it's to set the framing again right now or to have Ann talk about what she learned.
So Scott, I'm sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to confirm, does that mean that we don't have the board updates first, Scott? That's how we had them on the agenda originally.
The agenda as posted had the council goal setting first, and then okay. Jordan and Michael are on deck to start with 4:45 with the Arts okay. Committee, and then PSAC following that.
Apologies, Major. I'm happy to talk if you'd like me to.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that, and then I'll set the framing.
Sure. So at our last discussion, the council asked how the ARPA funds could be used and if the ARPA funds could be used for staffing things like planning. The staff report that I provided is a broad general overview that we've received from the federal government that aligns to the primary locations where those funds can be spent. The best way to describe it is either we can get money into the hands of others, i.e. we can get money into the hands of residents, small businesses, staff, individuals who were disproportionately affected during COVID. We can do infrastructure improvements for anything except for transportation. So for water-related projects, we can backfill into our general fund or into our fund balances where we did not receive sufficient capital or tax dollars because of losses. The common example that's been provided that's easiest to describe would be things like a tax on tourism, where a community is highly dependent on tourism but did not receive those dollars because there were no tourists. We saw something similar here in Milwaukie with things like transportation and gas tax. We saw a significant drop off in the number of people who were commuting during the time. We can make the connection between commuting and the pandemic, and so those would be allowable backfilling expenses. So we went through a list a few months ago, back in April, that said these were the general ways that we were planning on spending dollars. We talked to you about putting a portion of them towards the CIP, a portion towards backfilling, a portion towards determining if we could do a rent assistance program or additional small business grants. We also talked about broadband. Since then, we have come up with a solution that allows for us to pay for a broadband study out of these funds, and you all approved that recently at a meeting with Brandon. So that's where most of those funds have been currently allocated. That left us at the time with about $400,000. Since then, we received the actual allocation. The first installment of about $3.3 million has been received by the city. And with that installment and the later calculations, we ended up getting slightly more than we'd originally expected. So that granted council the chance to talk about closer to $700,000 instead of $400,000. Part of the delay right now is looking at the fund balances can be spent on affordable housing if you are in a qualified census tract. We are not in a qualified census tract, but there are always options around, well, there's not always. Sometimes there's an option to become the thing you need to be to take those dollars. So we are waiting until we have the new community development director in place before we have any further conversations about how that last $700,000 is allocated, just so that we know if we could actually put it towards different infrastructure than just the CIP, and we would grant you all the chance to talk about that before we make any decisions. So that's the current holdup on those funds. I expect that we'll be having that discussion sometime in November or December. Did that answer your question, Mayor?
I think so, yeah. Does anybody else have any clarifications on that? Am I coming in all weird and garbled on everybody else's lines? I have no idea what's happening.
I think the only thing that I do just for the community who's watching, any investments that we did make with those dollars would be for hard infrastructure. So we could use the dollars for actual construction. And how the council wanted to actually put those dollars towards construction, there's a couple of options as a partner that we could do. So we're just waiting until we have more information about those ones. Okay, that's it unless there are questions for me.
I do have one that's not necessarily relative to this conversation, but since it came up, it brought up a curiosity. I've learned recently that Oregon is one of the states that is doing a very poor job of getting rental assistance money out at the state level. Where is our program?
So we were working through a partnership with a nonprofit in town. That partnership has lost its staff that was involved in this program, and they have not been able to take on additional responsibilities to help us get those funds out. So we last had that discussion with them about a month ago, and we continue to check in with them to see if there are opportunities to partner with them in the future.
Okay, thanks. So to frame the conversation, council typically has, or at least in the last several years, had 3 goals. Through previous conversations, we have landed on maintaining 2 of the goals that we're currently working on, which is equity and justice and climate. We are currently in a discussion about what other goal or goals we might have. We coincidentally, or maybe not, we have some staffing issues currently where we are down 2/5 of our planning staff and their admin. And the planners are who would be doing a lot of work on many of the goals that we're talking about. So we have several options. One would be that we could add housing as a goal. One that would be that we could add parks as a goal, which were the 2 sort of highest vote getting concepts in our last meeting. One, which I think is highly unlikely given our staffing capacity at the moment, is to have and the report from Ann is to have more than 3 goals. And then the last option is to only have 2 goals and to allow the work that's going to happen one way or the other on parks because of the money coming through our state rep and senator to occur, and the work that is already in play on our affordable housing to continue without additional things added to that. So those are all of sort of the options as I see it. I know Councilor Beatty would still love to see Kellogg Dam as a goal. But again, I think most of us are still in the place of it. Us having it as a goal will probably not make a lot of difference until there's $22 million on someone's table. So did I fairly lay that out as far as everybody's concerned? Is that more or less where we stand? Okay. So I guess let's start with the question, has anybody dramatically changed their mind on their choice of what the third goal would be?
I mean, I would say that I've been encouraged by the conversations we have had with the county and with the new parks director. And while I do still think we would benefit from having parks as a goal for a year, I don't have quite the sense of urgency I was having about it the last time we talked. So I'm not sure if that quite qualifies for what you've described, but I figured that was worth mentioning.
Okay. Anybody else? Any changes of heart?
Not really a change of heart, but I will reiterate something I said before. We will not be in position. I mean, you said, the view of everyone else was, we shouldn't make the dam removal a goal until we had $22 million in sight. There's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem with taking that view because we're not going to be ready if there happens to be federal funding out of this infrastructure bills that are kicking around in Washington. We don't know what's going to come of that. We don't know what's going to happen with, what other money ODOT's going to have, what other pressures ODOT's going to have, what other environmental obligations ODOT's going to have that could change things. And we're just never going to be closer to being ready if we don't devote some resources to it.
So just to unpack that a little bit, if we were to make this a goal, what do you think we would do specifically to make us more prepared for that eventuality?
Well, we would be pushing the dialogues with ODOT as opposed, and we would be pushing the dialogues with the representatives and the, senators. We would have some engineering expertise at the table. I think that's an important piece that, the Watershed Council doesn't bring. They can hire it to some degree, but they don't really, it's not something they have. I just think having it as a council goal says something to potential funders, potential, all of that. The people who were advocates for it, in 2009, 2010. It was really interesting to go back through those old council goals where we thought we could have it done by 2016. Wasn't that a lovely, quaint idea? It's been out there a long time. It's been out there a long time, and we've been talking about it as a community a long time. We've been talking about it as a community a lot less since it's no longer been a council goal. I think that's also part of the chicken and egg problem. So.
Okay. So any other changes of heart or thoughts? So at this point, I don't see 4 votes for any third goal. And just in case anybody's watching, what that does not mean, if we were not to have a third goal, it does not mean that affordable housing will cease to be worked on. There will still be 500 new units coming at Hillside. There will still be however many units we can build over at the Bird Street. I can't ever remember.
Sparrow.
Thank you, Sparrow. And that all of the missing middle work that we're doing is going away, or for that matter, all of the work that's called for in the comp plan and the vision are going away. All of that is continuing to be worked on.
Well, and we have our construction excise tax in place.
And we have some funding for affordable housing. So affordable housing by no stretch of the imagination goes away if council chooses only to have two goals. I want that to be abundantly clear.
And can I add something, Mayor? I just want to say, because I don't know that I've been clear in the conversations we've been having previously, that that my commitment to housing affordability is unyielding. Just because I am looking at where we are at now and saying I think this needs to not be a goal for the time doesn't mean that I'm not personally invested in this work in any way, shape, or form. We do still have a housing emergency. We have a very active field right now where we have millions of dollars coming into the county. We have our code package that needs to be adopted, and we need to see how that lands. We have a pretty good work plan laid out by our planning department for the continued implementation of the vision that we laid out in policy in the comprehensive plan. So I just want to say that personally, this is not in any way an indication that I feel this work is invaluable, is not valuable anymore. And I really do expect that it will be a council goal sometime again in possibly the not terribly distant future. But I feel like where we're at right now, particularly in our capacity issues, it's time to step away from it for a moment.
And since we're just reiterating what we've said previously, I guess I will just add on that I think that everything that we've discussed, including the work that Council President Heisey just mentioned, demands our continued focus and engagement. And I think that that's reason well enough in implementing all of that is reason enough for us to maintain it as our third goal for this council.
Okay. I very specifically didn't include the possibility of having a third council goal based on a 3-2 split vote, because I do very much agree with our city manager that goals that aren't broadly supported by council risk work being done and then, a split vote where somebody's absent and you end up with a 2-2 vote and all that work goes by the wayside. And I think we have been particularly effective as a council on so many issues, on so many levels, because we speak with one voice. And I do think that's partly because we come to these decisions around goals and we try and do it with a supermajority, if you will, that has us all be in agreement, so that when a partner or potential partner or a somebody who's an opponent to the concept speaks to any one of us, they hear our reasoning for why this is an important thing to be working on or concentrating on at this moment. So I will not be comfortable with the concept of a 3-2 change. And that's on me, I know. Yeah, Lisa.
I hadn't really come in here thinking about only 2 goals, but I kind of like it because I think it lets us have some flexibility. If in 6 months something's gone cattywampus on the parks discussion, or some opportunity has presented itself for dam funding. So I kind of like the idea of 2 goals and the flexibility it gives us.
I am comfortable with 2 goals, and I appreciate the mayor's comments about the value of us being in close alignment on our goals. I do think we have accomplished an incredible amount of work because of that. And focus is real. I don't know if we'll have capacity in 6 months, so I'm not sure I want to put a timeline on when we would revisit this conversation, but I do feel like for right now, 2 goals may be appropriate for the craziness of a pandemic. You know, there's no way we can deny that it has affected each and every one of our lives in different ways. And that's no different for the city as an organization.
Yeah, we've all been reading stories about, what are they calling it? The Great Resignation. And it's across the board. It's everywhere. It's every company, every organization, every walk of life. People are re-examining their lives and how they want to be spending their time. And while on a personal level, to some degree, I applaud that. I've obviously, by my career, made the decision that I didn't want to work to live or live to work. I wanted my work to be something that I loved doing, so that when I was doing it, I wasn't just making a living. And I think there's a lot of people that can't say that. And philosophically, I get it and I applaud it. That said, it makes it really hard for organizations to function. It makes it really hard for, particularly in a place like Milwaukie, where we have been pushing harder, I would say, than any other city our size. I would say we are pushing as hard as the very big cities in Oregon. The work we're endeavoring to do is on par with the Hillsboroughs and the Portlands and the Beavertons and Eugenes. And that's hard enough to do with a full staff, and virtually impossible with staffs that end up with holes because somebody is rethinking their life. So I do think that's the other reason that I'm choosing not to allow the goals to be decided on a 3-2 vote, because I think it's pointless to have a goal if you if you can't back it up, if you can't actually do the things that you're intending for that goal to do. And at this moment in time, and this might all be different in 6 months, but at this moment in time, we don't have the staff to do even more on housing than we are already doing on housing. And we'll be continuing to be doing on housing for the foreseeable future. I do think there's a couple of holes, and I think there might be conversations once we have the new CD about our order of priorities, like what things we think should happen sooner. particularly given, I don't know if any of you saw the story. God, and I'm completely blanking. Kathy, what's the organization that did that story on Portland and the new land use laws?
Sightline Institute.
Sightline. It was on OPB a couple, 3 days ago. And they talked about, all the work that Portland's doing. Sightline is estimating that only a couple of those aspects are actually going to result in affordable housing in the near term. Now, we may be different, right? Our lots are bigger, tend to be bigger, and our land value is lower. So that calculus may be different for Milwaukie, and I think it's something that we might want to explore. But I think that's a worthwhile thing to do, to figure out, okay, in the near term, what are the ways that we get more affordable housing actually built, and so that we make sure that we're not missing those opportunities. So I think, there's room to finesse what we're doing and how we're doing it to get the greatest result, the most positive result. Any other thoughts in this moment? Well, we do have this on the schedule for the end of the meeting tonight, so we can, everyone can sort of simmer in this place that we're at in the moment. If Jordan and I saw Hamid, and Jordan appears to be on. Who else are you guys going to have on your portion? Jordan or Hamid?
That's it, just the two of us.
So you guys could start 15 minutes early?
Yeah.
All right. So let's put the council goals on hold until the last item this evening, and move on in the work session with the art committee annual report.
Sounds good.
Sounds snazzy. My name is Hamid Shibata Bennett. I'm chair of the Milwaukie Arts Committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council and city staff and all the folks out there. The Arts Committee has been working hard in this pandemic, and I really appreciated listening in on a bit of what you all were saying, because you all just care so much about this city, and so that's really humbling. And the Arts Committee in the pandemic has really been trying to connect us all in the city in ways, as people start changing their lives and reassessing, and we want to create art and culture to catch them and to connect us all. So we've been doing that in a lot of ways. And I want to thank Jordan, who put together this awesome slideshow presentation, because Jordan's our city liaison, and he's just, you all need to give him a raise or something, because he just does such a tremendous job. He's just such a gift.
Thank you, Hamid. That's very nice of you.
Well, yeah, masked man. So yeah, we've been, Jordan, how should I say to advance the slides? Should I do a little?
You can say next.
Okay. Well, let's next.
Wait, what?
Actually, let's hold on this for just a moment if you go back. So this was one of our, one of the murals that went up in this last year in the pandemic. When I took over as chair, we had a big old mural fund just kind of sitting there, and we really wanted to slap some paint up on the walls. This was the second out of the two murals that we've done so far. The Made in Milwaukie, the Welcome to Milwaukie mural, just kitty corner to Water Tower Park. And of course, this features the Hadleys, who are the first Black-owned bakery here in Oregon, and Ah Beng, who was a man of Chinese descent, who helped develop the Bing cherry. So there's a little bit of a push from the arts committee to want to like bring in the Bing cherry. We'll hear about that more. Next, please, Jordan. So we set some goals for the 2021 into 2022, which just sounds like science fiction years to me. Number one, we want to really cultivate opportunities for the community to engage with and create art. We want to get folks involved, hands-on. It's not just the professional artists who are folks who can create art, but we want to like inspire some of that play in the folk town. And we want to really establish Milwaukie, this little hub of ours, as a center for arts and culture. And by creating art in all sorts of different ways, and showcasing the creativity of our region. And then our third goal is to establish diverse funding streams for citywide art projects and other kinds of programs. The funding part of being in a committee without much of a budget has been a challenge, and we've worked some with the NDAs, had some interesting challenges from working with them, but got through a lot of it. And of course, we've had this mural fund, which has been fantastic. So we can slap some paint up on some walls and make some interesting shapes and colors for folks to see. Next, please, Jordan. And so like our past year successes, well, we started up the Light Up Milwaukie contest, and we had a whole bunch of homes enter a holiday decorating contest and light up the front of their homes. This was back in December of 2020. We created an online map, a Google map, so people could send us their addresses where their homes were decorated, and then we put it on a map, and folks could look on their computers or their phones and create their own tour of their neighborhoods. And so we had through a few different, we had a contest, of course, we had 3 different categories: most creative, most festive, most Milwaukie. And we just had some just stellar fun entries. Like you see the Griswolds, Christmas Vacation references there. Just folks did a really great job. And that's really one of the ways why we want to encourage folks to be creative. They can be creative in their homes during certain times. And we had some great prizes by Unicorn Bake Shop, local bakery that just does fabulous creative work. And PGE donated, I believe they donated some of those like smart doorbells.
Stats?
What was that, Jordan?
Smart thermostats.
Oh, smart thermostats. Yeah, please jump in anytime. All right, let's move on. Next, please. So another thing we did is we threw a second Porch Fest. We first threw the Porch Fest in the midst of the pandemic last year, and we had and it was very successful, and we were encouraged to do it again. So we threw a springtime Porch Fest. We really wanted to bring people out, like after the darkness and the rainy, wet, and of wintertime. And so as it started getting nicer weather again, we invited folks out to play on their porch. And we had like really diverse performances, like the fellow pictured, he's just playing his bass guitar to a bunch of tracks. And this one lady is out on her just front lawn playing the violin. And we had drag queens in the Island Station neighborhood. So that was pretty rad. We had a lot of diversity in the performances. So it wasn't just music, but the community, their offerings, their skills, their heart, they just kind of let it all out and showcased it for everyone. So we had more than 85 performances throughout the city. And it was quite a hoot. Next, Jordan. So Carefree Sunday has been such a nice way that we've gotten to start to come back out into the in this pandemic world. I know we're still in it, but with most folks masked up and socially distanced and outdoors, it's made an event like this possible. And the Arts Committee helped contribute to one of the Carefree Sunday events at Stanley Park on August 15th. And one of the founding members and one of our former members, Alicia Hamilton, created this amazing triptych, a 3-part paint by numbers mural. And she made a wonderful key with all the colors matched up to numbers, and Arts Committee members were washing brushes and making sure everything went smoothly. And it was such a beautiful day amongst the setting of all disc golf and all kinds of other fun stuff going on. We created a mural and it turned out really, really beautiful. I'm just so proud of everyone who contributed. And so another way where we want to get folks involved in painting and from young to old, everyone can contribute and paint a little portion. And I believe what I heard. Yes.
Sorry, I was just wondering if you could remind us where it will be displayed to the public.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Council President Heisey. Yes, I understand that it will be displayed in City Hall, in council chambers.
If I can jump in real quick, sorry, Hamid. I'm in the chambers there, and it's a little obscured by chairs, but if you can see my video shot, it's at the back of chambers, and that's where it's going to be. It'll be in council chambers. We're working on getting it mounted.
Oh, that's fantastic, Scott. It's really neat to see that. So for anyone tuning in to this broadcast, minus the chairs, it's like a sneak peek. It's like partially obscured from your view, but you'll be able to see the full majesty of the community's work. And it's beautiful. I mean, look at those colors. Look at those shapes. It's
it'll be on this wall soon.
Above the chairs. A little higher up. Okay.
Yep.
Good. Not on the ceiling, but on the wall itself.
Right.
Thank you, Scott. That was rad to see. Next, Jordan. All right, so this Milwaukie. We like a good pun. This was the brainchild of one of our members, Samantha Swindler, who is now our vice chair. She moved up from secretary to vice chair. And Samantha has just been such an amazing member of the Arts Committee, really taking projects and rolling with it. So we had a piano donated. We put the word out and asked if anyone had a piano donated. And we met up with some folks in their pickup truck at City Hall, and Jordan was there to help out too. And we managed to get a piano down and put it into City Hall. And the Arts Committee has been working so hard on this piano to prep it. They had to put on new kind of forward bracings, the poles in the front, new wheels. They had to sand it down and primer it, and then they taped it up. And this was another paint by numbers project. So at the August 29th Carefree Sunday, we had it ready to be painted. So it had been all primed and sanded and taped up. And Arts Committee members met the public and handed out paints, and everyone had a really, really fun time. And what a treat to be a part of that Carefree Sunday, which was a bigger Carefree Sunday, of course, that encapsulated a lot of the downtown area. So that was quite a joy to see everyone painting, and it turned out really, really great. There are a few hidden hearts. I'm not going to let you know how many, but there are some hidden hearts from or a little crossover with the Hidden Hearts Milwaukie group on Facebook. We like to throw hearts on things because, love. So this is a pretty similar process to the Paint by Numbers mural. And so our plan is to roll, like once it's complete, it's like the state you're seeing it in it now has been the state of taking it from Carefree Sunday and then bringing it back to City Hall, and Arts Committee members took off the tape and then touched up the lines and kind of filled in the gaps and like really made it pop. There's going to be some words on it. There's going to be Milwaukee's on it. And we like to roll it out at different city events and let folks plunk out a tune, whether or not you know how to play a piano or not. This is another way we want to get the public involved. And I feel like music is such an amazing way to develop a brain, to develop a mind. We've got neuroplasticity, right? So like all of this hands-on stuff like helps us all heal our brains in some wonderful ways. So yeah, I want to encourage everyone, young and old, whether you've never tinkled a key or not in your life, or whether you're really experienced, like when you see this and when it's out, you'll notice it. Come sit in front of it and play it. There's also a bench, which is not pictured, and that is of similar design too.
Councilor Beatty?
Yeah, I happened to be in front of City Hall at the end of the day that day when they were, taking it back in. And there was a guy who really wanted to sit down and play it right then. He was like, "Can I play this now?" And I said, "I think that they'll be putting it out in the future. Sorry, So I do think it'd be great to, just put it out during farmers markets or something. I think I've been in Portland when the ones there's usually one by the Art Museum and a few other places around Portland in the summer. And I've been there when people sit down who are crazy talented and people who are just plunkers too, but really some amazing piano people sit down and play. So, like I said, there was a guy who was anxious to play the day you guys were painting it. So I hope it gets out there.
Unfortunately, I think we painted it shut, so you probably couldn't have painted it that day anyways. You got to work on the hinge. It'll be taken care of. but soon, I hope he comes by again when the piano's out. And the farmers market is a wonderful place to display it too. Jordan, next, please. Oh yes, the sculpture garden. This is such a favorite of the Arts Committee. Just seeing all these huge works of art. Most of the sculpture garden is right beside City Hall. We do have one piece at Dogwood. What park is it? Is it Dogwood Park at the end of by the library?
Yeah.
Down by the food carts.
Yeah, down near there. But we've got 3 new ones coming in. We've got 3 spaces opening up, rather. We didn't have too many entries this year, but we have picked out 2 so far that'll be going next to City Hall, and we're right now determining how to find a 3rd. Yeah, the one from Rick True is the fish in the upper left corner. Rick True has been in the sculpture garden before. And he's had a very twirly sculpture, like that fish is kinetic as well. So there'll be movement to it and responses to the wind. And then Shelley's sculpture, Knowing, is just I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I just think it's such neat metal work with some stone work in there too, and it's just a beautiful presence. But we're working on finding a third right now.
And Shelley's is made of all reclaimed material. I think she salvaged almost all of that steel from, I think, just like a scrapyard, as well as the agate that's in the middle.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Next, please, Jordan. Yeah, what are we working on right now? So I got it under my skin to propose something a couple meetings ago. We've got some money from the mural fund, and thanks to y'all for the recent contribution to replenishing some of that fund. We'd really like to make a connection with the tribe. Like the murals that we've put up so far have been the Joe Rizzo's mural at Chan Stakery, which shows like the local nature around our city. And then of course we put up the Welcome to Milwaukie mural, which showcases the BIPOC history of our city. And I feel like it's time to go a little further back and honor the folks who were here first. There are folks who were here before Lot Whitcomb and Llewellyn and those folks, and we'd really like to showcase some of them. So we've been trying to make connections with the Grand Ronde tribe, and I understand right now they're on leave or on vacation right now, so we might not be able to make connection with them until at least mid-September. But hopefully soon. But that's I'm terming out in the committee. I'll be done in springtime, and I just really like to find a way to honor the Indigenous folks who are here and give them a place to create expression. And so we are thinking of using that wall on the post office that is on Main Street, that is next to the street mural and near the food carts and near the Jerry Insco's mural at Axle Tree, creating more of a kind of a connected hub of artwork in that SoDo area of town. Also in the works is a public mural at the Chapel Theater over on Southeast Harrison Street. They're a performance art venue who've still been as active as they can through the pandemic. A lot of their events had gone virtual, but now they're starting to return to some live things. So go support live theater. We've got a mural in the works that we've had approved, and it's just the artist wasn't so available towards the end of this year. So hopefully that will be worked on quite soon. We have also been working on the Metro Community Placemaking Grant, and full disclosure, I've just been accepted to be on the advisory board for Metro Community Placemaking Grant, and we'll be help deciding those murals. And if any of the Arts Committee proposals come up, I recuse myself from any of that decision making. So that'll be just a new thing for me personally. It'll be a neat way to see what our whole region is wanting to do with arts and culture.
Congratulations, Hamid. That's awesome.
So thank you, Mark. We've been told by Metro that that grants outside of Multnomah County could be quite viable. Like they're really looking to create art outside of that Portland area. Jordan, next. All right, what do we got coming up? Well, there's a return to the Scarecrow contest, and at City Hall. So there's a bunch of scarecrow skeletons in the fire bay, and we're gonna have another contest and letting the community self-express, letting them create art, letting them create creative expressions, and encouraging that. So that's always really, really popular and creates all kinds of fun social media photo opportunities for families and such. And in the backdrop of City Hall is really a neat thing. On a particularly blustery day, the scarecrows can be a little creepy. It's a good vibe for the Halloween season. We also have a project that we're working on. Still unsure if we can pull it together this year, but we're working on it. This is, again, another one of Samantha Swindler's ideas, is the Bing in the New Year, where we'd like to create a fairly large cherry and light it up and drop it on New Year's Eve. And right now we're in talks with the Made in Milwaukie store to do it in their parking lot. They have a parking lot that is shared with Dark Horse Comics in downtown, and yeah, we're looking for some funding to create a big cherry. It's just kind of a passion project of the Arts Committees. And of course, we want to replicate Porch Fest again in the 2022 season. And I believe, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we set Fridays in August as a goal to do an next Porch Fest series.
Yep, that's what we're planning on tentatively. So yeah.
Yes, tentatively right now. And not the first Friday, in case, I mean, we'd love to see First Fridays return to Milwaukie. So we're going to go from the second, third, and fourth Fridays of the month, and hopefully get everyone out creating music again. Next, please, Jordan. Yeah, that's it. And there's a picture of Joe Rizzo's mural. At least one side of Joe Rizzo's mural, it actually is on three sides of Chan's Bakery. So take a stroll around the building and check it out. Anyone have any questions or comments, concerns, or limericks or poems or anything?
Now I feel like I should say something in a limerick form, but I don't have the bandwidth mentally. Thank you. And thank you to everyone on the Arts Committee. I think that you all have really done a lot to bring heart and fun, which is something I think we're all lacking in these times, to Milwaukie. And I've certainly appreciated all of the projects that you've done. I feel like I've personally benefited, and it's been so nice to see the community smiling together and enjoying themselves. So a real thanks to the Arts Committee for not just focusing on art, but also focusing on interaction and community building in that work. Because I think that's really been a gift you all have given to us in a time when we really needed it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, President Heisey. But you know, every one of us have heart. We're just giving people excuses to share their hearts.
Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly second everything the council president just said. I wanted to note that we seem to have a little burgeoning art community in downtown Milwaukie. You know, we've had Made in Milwaukie, which is the hometown boys largely, Chris Haberman and Rob Campbell and others. But there's two different art spaces in the dental office, and that building is not long for this world. So they're, they're transitory, but I hope they find root and maybe find other places to be in Milwaukie. So on the lower level is the place called The Haven. And I have not been in there, but I met one of the guys at a booth I was at, and it sounds like a great space. I'm going to have to go in there. And then just this weekend, I noticed in the upstairs space facing toward Axletree is a new business called Slabtown Borough, which is, and they have a website, Slab. In this case, Portland has this Slabtown name, but in this case, the Slab actually is an acronym, and it means something about, where can I find it? Supporting local artist businesses. And they are they're putting up a lot of art glass and different things in there. It looks like it's going to be another interesting space. So it's great to see these kind of things coming into Milwaukie. And like I said, that building will not be here too much longer, but hopefully they will find a community and we can help them find some places where they can stay. So it was pretty exciting. Yeah.
Councillor Beatty, that's so cool about Slabtown Borough. I'll have to meet these folks. I just heard about the Haven from Joe Rizzo the other day and we have been meaning to go there. I understand they have an open mic on Monday evenings at 7.
Oh, really?
There. And yes, they are looking for a new space. Maybe there's a place for them in City Hall or something, though they may need something sooner. But when City Hall is sold and repurposed. Yeah, it'd be really neat to see them still find root here in town.
Right.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your support of the arts in our city. Love to you all, and have a swell night.
Well, Hamid, I want to say more or less what Lisa and Kathy just said too, that your committee, in some ways, more than any other aspect of the city, did a great job of helping keep spirits up and creating opportunities for a little joy here and there in a really tough time. And I think that is a hard thing to do, and you guys did it admirably.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That just means so much. Yeah, we could all use a little joy these days, and any excuse we can get to find joy in our community. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a good plan.
Excellent plan. Thank you and your team for all their amazing work.
I will thank them. They're just doing amazing. And so are you. You all are doing amazing, keeping this city together and really making it feel like home.
Good.
All right. Good night, all.
Have a good evening. All right. Thanks, Jordan. Next up, we have the Public Safety Advisory Committee, their annual report, and that's going to be kicked off by Michael Groom, our engineering technician. And then I don't see. Oh, and Jay's on, their new chair. So we'll get to hear from him. Welcome, guys.
Hello, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce PSAC before we moved on to the work plan that we have going on for this upcoming year. I took over for Jennifer Backus in February for the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And since then, I've been working with Steve Adams as the kind of the co-liaison to this committee. And this committee consists of representatives from each neighborhood district association, along with a few at-large members. We have just lost a couple of members, one who resigned and one whose term ran out. So we have a couple of open positions that we're looking to try and refill. We have one person who we are looking to interview here soon, but also looking to recruit more. PSAC's focus tends to be on public safety and disaster preparedness. And a usual meeting consists of hearing updates from Clackamas Fire, which has been especially important over this past year, Milwaukie Police, engineering due to the large projects going on, and with Brenna Cruz from the Milwaukie Emergency Management. I understand she's no longer going to be with the city, so I understand that's going to take a bit of a back seat. But for any future things that we're going to be working towards, I'm going to hand it off to Jay to talk about the work plan.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to see everybody. Kind of a tough act to follow with Hamid. He brought a lot of sunshine into the city of Milwaukee. PSAC, we're not boring, but it's a little bit of a different topic. The two main things that we're going to be focusing are going to be the TSP plan, which I think the last plan was in 2013 and it was redone then, and it's going to be redone in 22, I believe, and 23. So that's a huge project that we will be working on. Every month, we're going to be taking a portion of the TSP plan and going over it to see where we can contribute as a committee. Disaster preparedness is ongoing. It's continuing. It's there all the time. I think we've got a big hole to fill with Brenna not being there. So we're going to have to, in some which way or form, be able to cover until someone fills that position. I believe all the NDAs are creating their own plans for disaster preparedness right now. And the way that we're going to communicate that is going to be either through the pilot or probably social media, mainly Facebook, so that each person that lives in each community understands what to do in the case of a disaster. And being that we've had an ice storm, COVID-19, continuation of COVID-19, fires, we have, it doesn't really make any difference what season we're in. It seems like we have something going on in each individual season. So as a city, we need to be prepared. And as citizens, we need to have our own personal plan also. I just kind of read exactly what our goals are. They're just bullets. Increase awareness of emergency protocols and evacuation orders. Increase awareness of what can be expected of all city services during an emergency. Provide education about CERT. Work with the city's emergency operations manager. I'm not sure if there is somebody that is acting as that person right now, or if it's just the hole that's not filled. Can anybody answer that question for me? Mark, do you know if there's anybody?
Ann would be the person.
The position is currently out for an internal hire.
So is there anyone is there anybody in that field that we can speak to as a committee that was maybe an assistant?
So there is not. And unfortunately, right now, we have a number of things that are getting picked up by other staff, and some things that are on hold. I think the piece that I've talked to Steve Adams about last week is that we're actually still in the middle of the pandemic, and we're still in the middle of some emergencies that are requiring that person's sole focus to be on actually getting us as the city through that process. Rules are regularly changing, and so making sure that we are staying on top of those rules and that we are engaging and creating a healthy work environment for both our employees and for our community members. So he did let me know of your interest, and I also wanted to thank Michael for the excellent staff report that helped me better understand where you all were right now. But unfortunately, with staff capacity, I can't make that commitment today.
Thank you.
Yep.
Another topic that we need to discuss as a committee and probably as a group right here at some point in time is what did we learn from the COVID-19 crisis? How do we react? How do we respond? There's a lot of positive that can come out of what happened with COVID-19, and then we have to learn from what we couldn't do. Not being able to face each other at a table with chairs sometimes is it makes a big difference. I think it made a difference in our committee. I know when I first joined, we were able to be at the public safety meeting building, and it was totally different than being on screen. As you can tell, I'm not a very good speaker. I'm a better writer. So sometimes I stumble when it comes to getting my point across. But anyhow, the rest of what we're going to be doing, we're going to be promoting National Preparedness Month, which is this month right now. We're going to talk about how we can participate, we meaning PSAC. There's a few things that happened during the year that we weren't able to do because of COVID-19, and one of them was Officer of the Year dinner. Couldn't participate in that. And the Shred Day, prescription drug drop-off day, that worked out pretty well from what I understand. And the bike giveaway, I'm not even sure if we had a bike giveaway, so we're going to have to work on whether or not we're going to actually have that. We're also going to continue to support efforts for safe routes to school. That really comes into play with the Linwood project and the Lake Road projects, almost completed. And I did see a post on Facebook the other day showing, I think Lisa posted it, showing the routes for the kids as to where the construction was highlighted. And as far as additional tasks for our group, we want to work with engineering with Steve on community member requests, consider adding time to each meeting to prioritize incoming traffic control requests. We've had quite a bit of discussion about Stanley in the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 months. Also review requests for service applications for potential prioritization within the SAFE program. Also review requests for ADA improvements. Maintain open communication and a positive relationship with the Milwaukie Police. Chief Strait and whoever he has replacing him at meetings, plus the fire department, have been fantastic. They've been at every meeting that we've had. They're always there. They always have a report, and they always field questions, and they're super to work with. And lastly, something that I believe hasn't been around in a long time, and that is neighborhood hubs. We're going to try and reenact that project so that we can maybe get a little bit more excitement in each neighborhood, along with being prepared for any kind of a disaster that could happen. That's about all I have. I'm going to pass it over to Steve, and thank you very much for listening.
Well, I didn't have much else to add. Anybody have any questions?
I have. Thank you. I was wondering if you knew off the top of your head, or if anybody, Michael or Jay, the openings, are they all at large, or are some of those openings neighborhood slots?
Yeah, one's an at-large, Angel, and the other one I believe is Lake Road.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah, I hope that, I mean, I'll definitely put the word out. I think it would be really important to have a strong voice, you know, especially as we go into revisiting the TSP, you know, someone who really can bring sort of a transit commuter voice. I think that, you know, we've got folks who are really, and on this council too, you know, really involved as cyclists and you know, walker. I mean, we have a lot of active transportation, you know, folks, I think, committed to this project, but I think, you know, a piece, and then my other question is maybe to Steve. You know, I don't know, when we built SAFE, there was, you know, sort of like we had to have sort of a contingent fund for those ADA requests, and I'm just wondering if we are receiving a lot of those. You know, you sort of piqued my, you reminded me that that's an element of the ADA compliance. That piece was that we would have to respond to those requests, and we had some money dedicated to that. And so I'm wondering how many of those you get, or if you're getting them frequently, or if this is an item that you're bringing up because you're starting to. Can you provide a little bit more info about that?
Actually, I get very few requests. I mean, down in maybe a couple 3 in the 2.5 years I've been here, almost 2.5. So it's not something that I thought we'd generate more. And a lot of the things are honestly are staff noticing problems and come in. But for a resident or a community member to specifically point out a shortcoming is not very common here. I know Kelly has concerns about we have a fairly robust number of ramps that don't meet ADA standards. And we are going to put more focus into that in the next couple of budget cycles, where we've been discussing quite a bit about how to address a backlog of a few hundred. I know with the capital projects, it's a point of every capital project go in and make the ADA ramps that are non-compliant compliant. But beyond that, I know there's several hundred that aren't touched by capital projects that we eventually need to start developing a plan on how we're going to work on. And so that is a main topic of the next budget cycle, actually, is discussing that more.
Go ahead, Angel.
That was a thumbs up. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, in the characterization of citizen requests, I'm surprised that you haven't gotten very many, because we get lots of them over the years. I heard one recently, and it prompts me to ask you a question, because I wonder if you have the same interpretation as some of your predecessors. Somebody expressed to me their feeling that the stretch of Harrison between, Main Street and 224 needs more crosswalks. And that is not something that we're hearing for the first time. There used to be a resident who came to city council meetings about once a year and made a pitch for more crosswalks on Harrison. And one of the things we heard was that you can't paint a crosswalk if you don't have the built proper ramps. Is that your interpretation of the ADA?
No, the ramp and the crosswalk are kind of independent. I've never heard of them being teamed together, needing one to have the other. Every intersection by state law is a crosswalk there, whether you see it or not. I know in my past conversations with traffic engineers, they discouraged having too many crosswalks because of it becomes, people stop worrying about an important crosswalk if they're passing one every block. And so there's been a general point of putting them in where it's really critical or very much needed and not overdoing them. And then plus on the maintenance side, these are all thermoplastic, and they're something that has to be maintained by our staff. The striping's done by Clackamas County, but any thermoplastic work is done by Public Works. And so I think there'd be a concern about overwhelming them by having too many crosswalks to both install and to maintain. We can cover it in the next TSP update, and we can talk to the consultant who's on board and get a fresher opinion on where a crosswalk's needed and when it's not needed. And
I do think you'll probably get, because my suggestion to this resident was, in fact, to talk to his PSAC rep and, have this brought up through the PSAC. So I do think you'll probably be getting some kind of request from one of the neighborhoods on this, but I was just curious for my own edification, because it does seem like there's schools on, there's the Waldorf school, obviously there's the nursery school on up the way, there's some big apartment buildings, so it does seem to me like Harrison is potentially could stand to have a little bit better crossings.
Okay. It would help if whoever brings that up maybe is more specific in what exact street they think a crossing is at, rather than just more. More is kind of a hard thing to
well, and I will say it may not even just be more, it may be like enforcement and stuff, because this is somebody whose child goes to that child care center where they have to park across Harrison and walk them cross,
Okay.
the childcare that's in the church. And they said there's just tons of speeding and people not slowing for that crosswalk.
Okay.
And they don't feel, they don't feel it's safe crossing with their kid.
Yeah, and Steve, from former conversations, I mean, the point is that between 28th Street and 24th Street, there is no crossing. So it's 4 blocks
Okay.
without a crossing of any variety. 26th comes out, it's a T intersection, which was at one point the argument, oh, we shouldn't put one at a T intersection for whatever reason. But it's a fairly walked neighborhood. There's a lot of sidewalks in that neighborhood, and 4 blocks without a crossing of a major street is not insignificant.
Okay. Thank you.
Unless somebody else has something, PSAC's done a great job both in the past and recently, and I think they do have a big task ahead of them with the new TSP. This will be the first time we've done a TSP since the vision. And I think it's worth familiarizing with your team, familiarizing themselves with the vision, familiarizing themselves with the comp plan, because I think there were a lot of thoughts around transportation baked into the new comp plan, and then familiarizing themselves with the current TSP so that there's less time spent with asking questions that are easily answered by just being familiar with what currently exists. And then the last piece I would throw out is to explore the concept of VUNRFs. We have one on the books, we don't call it that, down on 19th. And basically the concept is to have neighborhood streets, not collectors, not arterials, but neighborhood streets that are designed and treated as a place for people to be, for kids to play, for old folks to walk, for bicycles, for skateboarders, for people to be. And cars are obviously allowed through, but cars should behave on a VUNRF as if they're the guest, rather than it's their God-given right to go 70 miles an hour from their driveway to King Road. And it's sort of my dream that our neighborhood streets all become, in essence, VUNRFs, so that if that were so, and if all of our arterials and collectors had good bike ped infrastructure, that would indeed make our city exceedingly walkable and bikeable and comfortable for people to just live, and not be the realm of cars only, which is kind of the general American concept of if it's got blacktop, only cars are supposed to be there, and they're supposed to be able to go as fast as possible.
Well, it's an interesting concept because we've actually have taken the Island Station 19th Avenue design, and currently it's in the charter for the Ardenwald North project. So the streets up there that are relatively not high traffic streets. So we're talking 29th, 28th, Roswell, whatnot. It's combination of stretching our dollars and not putting in sidewalks everywhere. The cost of curb gutter and sidewalk is to put a WUNR style sidewalk down with a tactile strip to separate it from the drive lane, and the drive lane would be a Shero with bikes and the ped on one side. But it's currently what is written up in the Ardenwald North charter for design of that area.
Cool. Yeah, I've seen some very interesting things where people used parking on alternate sides of the street to create some sort of natural chicanes. Mm-hmm. To put in actual chicanes and then plant a big tree or something, to put in stormwater swales. utilize other space to cause that road to not look to the driver who's sitting there in his car like a place that they can go 50 miles an hour. It looks like someplace they should be driving slowly. And I do agree. I think that the opportunity there, rather than doing 22 feet of pavement and then a curb and then a planting strip and then 4 feet of sidewalk or whatever, 6 feet of sidewalk, the expense there, as we both know, is what, $250,000 a block. And just by reducing what looks like the drivable space while keeping it plenty big enough for a fire truck to get down, and causing it to have visual curves to it, I think we could night and day change the attitude and the sort of behavior on streets, because we get a lot of folks writing us and calling us and complaining about people driving too fast on their neighborhood streets. And I think we can kill two birds with one stone in causing our streets to be less expensive to build out and to maintain, and making them more people friendly.
I'll channel my inner Anne here and suggest we feed two birds with one hand. Yeah, I would completely agree. And it actually used to be on PSAC's work plan especially when 19th was being, when those designs were sort of, in the community. When I was on PSAC, we thought this would be a great thing for us to have a conversation around, when we do revisit the TSP. And so now is the time really for this to be back on the work plan. And I would also just maybe suggest we get some information out to residents as we're working on the north, that North Ardenwald project, because I think, you'll find that people are already doing some of the work that the mayor is talking about, kind of organically, by parking their, boats and other things and plantings, and that maybe we can reach out to them and let them know that there's actually a right-of-way permit process for, maybe building out some of this, so it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive bioswales. It could be just simply, putting in, a sort of a little bit of a nature play area, by allowing people to use the right of way, because we have that process in place now. It could be tree plantings. I just planted 3 trees in the right of way on the side of my house through that permitting process and the Friends of Trees. So I think there's lots of opportunity to engage with people, because, folks are going to be, as we've already experienced, with the SAFE project, there are some people who are already using that right of way, and we can probably leverage some of that activity that's already taking place in the community, and maybe do it in a little bit more planned way.
Lisa.
This has kind of become, this isn't about neighborhood streets, it's about arterials, but I do think that your rebuild of Linwood is going to have, in addition to adding these great paths, is really going to slow traffic on Linwood. You've really narrowed it down, and I've driven it a few times lately. And of course, it's still somewhat under construction, so that's slowing people even more. But once it's all cleared, I do think it will turn out to have lowered the average speed on Linwood. And I think it would be very useful to have some measure of that to verify if that's really what's happened. And hopefully there were some before measurements at the police department or that you guys took. But, I really think Linwood does not, it used to be like just so wide and people just, really went up it. And I think, that project is great for both providing pedestrian safety as well as lowering speeds.
Yeah, and I think those safe projects have potential to help with traffic coming in onto the streets that have the safe improvements as well. You know, I don't think you've been out to do additional measurements, but my perception of the speeds on Sparrow Street coming down the hill is that after the safe project improvements that put in a little pork chop and a pedestrian crossing at the top of the hill, that it's dramatically decreased the number of people who just zoom down the hill. So these projects have benefits that extend well beyond just the actual street they serve on, as they're intended to do. But it's really nice to see it actually play out that way instead of just being this thing we expect and hope will happen.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add something, and it has to deal with mindset. As you all probably know, you follow me on Bike Milwaukie, but I ride quite frequently through Selwood and then into South Portland and then back through Southeast and then back and up for about a 15-mile loop. And I do that weekly, usually on the weekend. And I was there today because I took the day off, and it was a little bit different. There was a lot more traffic out there at 8:30 in the morning than normally on a Sunday or a Saturday morning. And I was on Milwaukie, and I was right where Ace Hardware is, and I was heading south right before the theater. And there was a lot of traffic, and there was a guy on a bike, and he pulled out in front of me, and he was in traffic. He stayed right in the center of the lane, and I was hovering on the right-hand side of the lane, and that's what I usually do. If I'm going 15 miles an hour on my bike, I feel like if there's somebody who wants to get by me, let them go. Whereas this person was actually sharing the road with the rest of the cars. And he was going about, maybe 15, 20 miles an hour. So I think it was more of you didn't even need to have a sign out there that said share the road, because everyone was allowing him to be in the center lane, at the center of the lane. So I think a lot of times after a certain period of time, when people start riding their bikes on roads that are normally where cars are going 30 to 40 miles an hour, pretty soon after a while, you would hope that they see bicycles on the road and there's an adjustment made. Kind of jumping on what Mark was talking about as far as cars not being the primary object in the road and having other people be able to share it. So I thought I'd just share that little innuendo I had this morning. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the work you're doing. Thank you, your team. And yeah, you guys have some exciting, interesting work ahead of you, for sure. Anything else from anyone else? Seeing none, we will adjourn the work session and be back at 6 with the regular session. Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you.